Hey everyone, back this week with a midweek episode, this time talking to Dave Faulkner of Alfie Cameras about the BOXX camera, which is a beautifully handcrafted wooden camera that integrates a complete darkroom inside its body. No screens, no electronics, and instant film cartridges that capture images directly onto photographic paper that is 6 by 9 centimeters, so it's about 2 by 4 inches. Simple, wet chemistry, an integrated process, a deliberate tool in an age of instant gratification and satisfaction, and instant capture of thousands of images that you then never look at again. I was really pleased when Dave said he would sit down and have a little chat about the project and the Kickstarter, and you have about 24 hours to back this if you're listening when this comes out. So clock is ticking. You need to get over to Kickstarter and have a look. There is a link in the show notes, and full disclosure, it's an affiliate link, so if you do choose to back the project, Prime Lenses will get a little kickback as a thank you as well. So a great way to support analog photography and your favourite podcast at the same time. Without further ado, here's my chat with Dave. We have increasingly, I think, through this period of time in history with AI and with the way that like devices are going and closed platforms have open things, that we're increasingly disconnected from the tools we use and how they work, and they're unrepairable, which I think is one of the nice things. Then when we come across a project like yours, where you're building a camera, but that camera's going to be understandable by anyone who picks it up as well, and if something goes wrong, they'll be able to see what it is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when you dig into it, the basics of a camera are fundamentally quite simple. And over the years, as they've been refined from what they were originally developed as, just wooden boxes with a lens and film on opposite each other, they've got more and more complex. And imagine someone like Talbot looking at a modern digital camera compared to what he's developed that was cutting edge at his time. It'd be like walking into a spaceship, complete mind blown.
For people listening who don't know, talk to us about what the project is and how it came out, like why you have decided, because I've worked in manufacturing and I know it's not easy. So talk to me why you've decided to put yourself in a situation where you're going to make tons of cameras.
Yeah, so I've my whole career has been as a design engineer, doing everything from medical devices to sanitary bins and everything in between. And I absolutely really enjoy solving the problems and getting a product to market. And that's my bag. Actually seeing a product out there that I've designed and developed is really exciting for me. And so this project was all about creating a camera that people could understand and do the whole process from start to finish of analog photography. So, being able to compose their own image and understand what's going on with focus and aperture, and then being able to load your own film or photographic media, and then create your exposure using a shutter or lens cap in this case. And then actually go on to develop it as well without, so you can literally pick up this camera and go from not knowing what you're doing with a bit of guidance. You can spend an afternoon creating a whole set of lovely prints and just be completely immersed in the whole process yourself.
Which is wonderful. And I think for anyone listening who hasn't looked, like you've got, as this comes out, this is the final day of the Kickstarter, so go and have a look and go and back it if you want to, because I think that point of like you can show someone, no pun intended, expose someone to the fundamentals of photography in a really short period of time. And because that loop, even people talk wax lyrical about film photography, but you still, for a lot of people, you're sending it away. A lot of people don't have, and developing film at home is a time consuming process, whereas this, so much quicker, isn't it? And you've got a print at the end of it.
Oh yeah, and the prints are completely unique. If I try and be really consistent with my developing process, but there are always variations in it. Sometimes the variations are pretty subtle, and sometimes something goes wrong and you get some cool sort of chemical effect going on the image. You're like, oh, wasn't expecting that, but oh, that's kind of cool. I like that. So it's just that whole, and I think what people don't realize is the consistency that people expect from a 35mm canister they send off to the lab. That has come through years of honing the process, and all of that process is controlled by the electronics of the developing machines. If you start doing stuff manually, you start getting variability.
Which as I found recently, I was developing some stuff in the dark. There's a dark room up in Inverness that I go to, and some folks knew the podcast and were chatting to me whilst I was doing my turning and whilst I was like agitating my film, and I underdeveloped it as a result because I miscounted. And so I was like, yeah, I was pushing film and doing some fun stuff. But so you're absolutely right. But it wasn't bad in the end. Actually, what I ended up with was a sort of slightly underexposed negative that I can do more with. It's a bit more neutral, a bit flatter, rather than a bit higher contrast and stuff. Which I guess is also part of this, because this tool is going to allow you to kind of experiment and iterate very quickly.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think for my ideal customer is someone who just wants to explore that process from. They want to learn, really. They want to try it, and maybe they've never done developing before, or they've done a bit of developing, but they really fancy trying something very vintage in the lenses side of things, and they just want to learn part of the process, and then they'll take that learning and they'll build on it, and every time they revisit the camera, it's like another opportunity to build on their knowledge and experience and try something different.
What should they expect then when this comes through? Because if you've got stuff to market before, I was fearful going in before I looked at the Kickstarter and read a bit more about your background. I was like fearful that, manufacturing and stuff is no small feat. But you've made a few of these. Hamish has had a go on 35mmC as well. It's worth going and having a look at his article he wrote about it with one of your prototypes. What should someone expect once the Kickstarter ends and you start manufacturing and shipping these?
Yeah, so it's going to arrive as a complete and a finished product. So it's going to be packaged nicely, the sort of thing you could give away as a gift at Christmas if you're feeling rich, or just buy for yourself as a gift. And it'll come with a guidebook to help you through the process. We're going to be doing videos to supplement that guidebook, because it's always helpful to get the instructions in different ways, and some people absorb the information better differently. Maybe we should do podcasts of how to do it. I don't know. But so you get that complete product, and you open the box, and there will be your camera there, with whatever lenses you've decided to add on as part of your backing. So we've got like a pinhole lens, which is the cheapest entry point, right up to 100mm Wollaston with different f-stops you can drop in. And you'll also get a film holder in there. So each camera comes with one film holder ready to go and a pack of film. You'll need to add chemistry to your backing, but I haven't made that sort of a mandatory part of the package, just because I know some people have their own chemistry or maybe they don't want to ship it across the world and they want to buy it locally. So there's a bit of flexibility in the backing, but there are some packages on there that are like everything, all the lenses, a bag, the chemistry, some extra accessories. But the point of it is you should have everything that you need to go out and take some pictures, bar the chemistry. You have to add that on. And what you should expect is not something you just pick up, take a picture, and oh, there we go. No, this is something that you sit down, you plan, or you think about how you want to use it, and you start playing. You start looking at it, start seeing how to interact with it, get your head around it, and get yourself in a calm space, and really set aside time to just do this process and dedicate. It's almost like me time for photography. Don't try and squeeze it in half an hour before you're dropping the kids off. Actually set aside some time to really enjoy the whole experience, and it is an experience.
It's very reminiscent. I've had wet plate people on the show in the past, and it's reminiscent of like the level of planning and thought that needs to go into making. And I think it's so much more satisfying. I was talking to someone, a listener on socials yesterday, in fact, about this, that I think sometimes he was saying that the film process makes him appreciate the images he makes more, because he actually spends more time. He thinks before he presses the button. And I think a lot of folk feel that with digital, that it's so quick. The moment comes and goes. You get the shot, and then you're sort of moving on because it's trapped in your phone, or it just lives on your computer for eternity. Was that some of the origin of this for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's part of the whole ethos of Alfie cameras and the previous camera that we did and this one. It's about putting more effort into taking the picture, and then that puts more value into the pictures you create, and it makes you treasure and value them more. So for me, it kind of analog photography I was massively into digital. I would take my camera everywhere. And gradually I got more and more sort of analog curious. Now I'm old enough to have used analog back in the day. When I was at university, I was having to take pictures of the products I designed on my course with an old Zenit E, which was a bit of a challenge in itself. But and so I knew a bit about analog, but I'd never really deep dived into it and really understood how to do it properly. And so as I drifted out of that sort of digital instant gratification of getting images and started exploring the analog side of things, I was picking up different cameras, and some of them I was spending a lot of money because I just loved them, thought they were beautiful, and then I'd learn how to use them and discovered they were a pain in the arse to use, or they were actually really, or there was one that I really loved using, and so I gradually honed in on the cameras I liked, and as I did that, my analog skills improved, and I'm now at the point where when we go on family holidays, or when we go out for any sort of family activity, I take all my pictures on film. I don't, digital photography, my son does a bit of that and my wife does a bit, but it's all on film because it creates these beautiful memories. And we'll sit down at the end, over Christmas, New Year period, we'll be like, right, let's pick the ones we're going to get printed out. And so as a family, we'll kind of look through and go, yeah, let's get those done. Let's get these done. And we'll select which ones we fancy having as prints, which is really lovely.
That's tremendous. That's a lovely way to work it. And I think it's funny. I did something similar recently, because listeners won't be able to see this, but I'm going to wave a book at Dave. I love instant photography. And so making little scrapbooks of prints and things when you've come back from a trip or when you've been somewhere, and having that tactility of something, I think is really meaningful. Like if I disappear tomorrow, my kids might not be able to get into the computer, or might not know where everything is, and it's stored on a NAS, and that's kind of impenetrable, but everybody knows how a book works, and they'll just find it and thumb through it and look through it. So I think you're right to say a lot of us become analog curious because we get a little bit bored almost with the instant nature of digital. I don't know why it is, but it's such a common refrain that people kind of go through that bell curve of extreme excitement that I can take pictures all the time anywhere, and with modern cameras practically in the dark, and then you come down the other side when you're like, I've sort of missed the challenge. And I guess it's satisfaction as much as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I still do digital photography. If I'm doing marketing images, it's a workhorse. It gets you the result as efficiently as possible, and I do it for myself when I'm doing wildlife photography. But with wildlife photography, the process and the learning is about the learning about the animals, the behavior, and catching the moment. And the tool that I'm using, the digital camera, is secondary to that. It has to be good enough to do the job. But I do occasionally do wildlife stuff with film, but the cameras are generally a bit too noisy for the sort of photography I like. I like to kind of stalk out a badger set one evening, and if you're sat there with a Mamiya press camera that sounds like a gun going off when the shutter goes, or it's not really gonna.
Yeah, you can't go up to a badger and go, I'm in my F8 and be there phase, so I'm going to need you guys to stay still, and a flash is going to pop in a second. It's also worth pointing out to folks, this is not your first rodeo in terms of like developing cameras and products and things like that. How are you feeling as you kind of come close to the end of this? Because the Kickstarter's hit its goal, so that must feel really, really good. But how are you feeling about like getting this out? Is this kind of like the project and then you'll take a pause, or are you viewing this as you want these things to be, like Wide Lux, for example, just launched they did their first 350, and then I think we'll see what the global addressable market for a clockwork panoramic swing lens camera is, right? Are you thinking the same about this, or do you plan to have this as an ongoing product?
So this will be an ongoing product for us, like the previous camera was. There's fundamental differences in the way I've developed this camera. So the first camera we did, the Titch, it was very much for me learning the Kickstarter process,
Right.
building a brand, getting a product out there. I had a lot of hopes and expectations that it would sell in the thousands, and it sold well, but it's not been the product that's built the company, and in no small part because I had a full-time job while I was doing it. So and the opportunities that we created by developing the camera just wasn't able to exploit. And so with this camera, I left the full-time job late last year. This is now what we're doing as a business, and so I'm expecting to build many more of this camera. It's been developed with a view to unbelievably. You look at it and you think, how are you going to volume manufacture? It's been developed with a view to make higher volumes than the previous design. So we have, for example, the film holder that we call it the pocket darkroom. That's predominantly injection molded parts, and we can make the main camera body by hand, and I have a craftsman doing that for me, and we can do that in hundreds or even low thousands without a problem. But when you consider that everyone buying a camera is I would say the average number of pocket darkrooms they're buying is probably 4 or 5. So for every 100 cameras we're selling sort of 400 pocket darkrooms. We can't do handmade artisan film holders. They've got to be a volume manufacturing technique. So we have designed the camera with that in mind. We wanted something that people would treasure and value and really enjoy interacting with. That's why we went for a wooden and brass camera body. But we've had to make the concessions on hand making things that would just be ridiculous to hand make, so that we can get the volume pricing down and hit a price that people, we've got 188 of backers, so enough people are excited about. And then we also have interest from the professional community as well. So by that, we've got distributors who are interested in selling it into education markets, and people who are interested in using it in workshop environments. So I think the potential for this camera exceeds the previous camera.
And I'm very glad to hear it, because I think you are thoughtful and focusing on the bit that matters. You focused on making the device fun to use and have a great feel and tactility to it. And then I think actually something like the pocket darkroom piece, you just want that to work. It's like the battery, or you just want a thing that is consistent. There's consistency across them. You never want a situation where you're like, oh, that one was made by Steve and he always finished it a bit like this, and that one was made, no, this is about, because that's developing your image. That's got to be consistent and predictable.
Yeah. The only unpredictability with the pocket darkroom is the person introducing the chemistry. So
yes, well, I was just going to say, like, and the temperature outside, and did you do it? Did you do it all correctly? As I found the other week in the darkroom. That's brilliant. So it sounds like you're very exciting, because I too have left full-time work to do a thing that on the face of it might seem a bit bonkers. So like, hooray! Like, nutter creative people of the world unite. But I think for people listening, then, where should they go? What kind of timeline should they expect on the cameras? The Kickstarter ends tomorrow. Then presumably there's a little wait while you kind of ramp up production and get these out into the world.
Yeah, so when the Kickstarter ends, it's actually then a couple of weeks before Kickstarter deposit any funds into our business account. At that point, we are expecting to be pretty much ready on all of the long lead time items. So we've, people who've joined and backed early will have seen some little tweaks and improvements going through on the updates. We're pretty much done on those. I think there's a few minor tweaks left to the design of the wooden box to help volume manufacturing for my craftsman guy who's CNCing out those wooden parts before he glues them together and finishes them. But so the expectation is that then we start placing our long lead time orders. So our tooling, for example, is a 8-week lead time before we're going to see the first sample parts. So the expectation for us and for our backers is that we're going to build those cameras over the summer. So we'll be ordering those long lead time items. They'll come back in and we'll do the manual assembly required to complete them and turn them into products. Whilst we're waiting for those long lead time items, we'll finalize our instruction manuals and our packaging so that come September time, everything's coming together. I'm panicking and trying to organize and streamline a manual assembly process. And then we're expecting to ship cameras out in the October timeframe.
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm so excited. It's a very, very cool project. It's a wonderful thing to see coming together. Truly. And you must be excited because people must be really excited backing this and messaging you and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement in the community. One of the funny thing, because being a company, you have to publicize stuff on so many different platforms. So we're like on Kickstarter, we've got emails coming in from the website, we've got people commenting on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and sometimes I just lose track of it, and so my phone's like pinging with different comments, and maybe I have to respond to something maybe between 5 and 10 responses a day on all these different platforms. So that I'm going to be pleased when that calms down a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been sort of 3 months really of marketing the product from pre-launch phase through the actual Kickstarter campaign. And that intensity is quite hard to maintain, I would say. And so once we reach that, the closing point tomorrow, that will calm down a bit. We'll still promote the camera. We'll still be talking about it and posting about it, but there's not so much urgency around that. And the focus very much shifts to delivery. We need to be able to deliver and build the camera. So, one of the biggest challenges I'm dealing with at the moment is this is my current workshop, which you can see, it's not very big. So we're looking at getting access to a new workshop space so that we've actually got the space to do this manual process efficiently, because we would be tying ourselves in knots in this space.
No, because also you're assembling stock, which means that when you put things together and put them in boxes, you've got to then put the boxes somewhere. And so the big empty room starts to fill up very quickly with boxes as you pile them in the corner, and then that you needed the big long table. You can start at one end and go to the other end because you can't miss stuff out. So yes, you've got lots of fun times ahead of you once you stop replying to comments on multiple platforms.
Yeah, and then of course, so we're then expecting to have. So my minimum batch size on this product is 500. So we'll be, for the stuff we have to order in bulk, we'll be ordering way more than is needed to deliver the Kickstarter project. So not only do I have to store the parts that come in for the Kickstarter rewards, and once they're built up, those boxed products before they're shipped out, but I've got to store the excess stock as well. So my loft at home is no longer going to cut it for the excess packaging. I think there's still a fair few boxes up there for packaging purposes, but no, we need a bigger space to work from.
I hope you're getting time to kind of grab a couple of behind the scenes shots and things like that as well, because years from now you'll want to look back, I guess, and remember like the madness.
Yeah. So that's been really fun actually. So my son, he's 13 years old, and he has been helping us do the making of videos. I think I sent you a link to a few of those. Yeah. So he's been my cameraman for the making of videos. Brilliant. And we've basically been trying to create this behind the scenes story that we can tell about the development of the camera. And I was discussing it with someone the other day. In most other industries, that would be lunacy. You'd be like, well, we're sharing all our secrets of how And I'm like, well, there are no secrets, that everyone
No.
can find out how to make this kind of camera. So it's just, we're sharing the journey because it's really interesting. And for people like us who geek out on this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, I'll stick that on and watch that on a Sunday evening and just enjoy finding out how Dave managed to spill chemistry across the lab and ruin his ruin his workbench, or whatever calamity has happened on the way to producing the product.
It's, I think, one of the really important things about making the show and in general is that, like, hopefully people, because once you make something and put it out into the world, it's the same with an audio product. It lives in the world and people find it, and they will find it years from now. And the idea that what you're making now and putting on YouTube and things will be found by someone years from now who goes, I'm going to make my own camera. Or maybe I'm going to make something different. Or, they scratch their own itch. So maybe they look at yours and go, that's cool. I want to make a panoramic version of that. Or I want, like, just to go out into the world. So I think, no, give it away. Like, put it out into the world. You're never going to get rich from keeping the secrets of a BOXX camera to yourself.
No. I had an interesting conversation with one of the backers the other day. He's really keen to have a shutter on the camera, and it's something we definitely want to do. It's just at the moment, when you're dealing with such low ISO photographic paper, you don't really need it. Most of your exposures are 1 second or more. I'm doing portraits of people inside, saying you're going to have to sit still for 10 seconds, and they're up for it. They want to do the challenge. So that's, outside it's quicker than that, obviously. But he really wants to be able to put film in the pocket darkroom, which is totally possible. But it means your shutter speeds need to be in the 10th or 50th, 60th of a second, or maybe even faster. So he's looking at doing I think he's looking at something more complicated. So I'm sharing some of the design details around the lens board with him so that he can have a crack at developing his own shutter. But we're looking at doing a really simple guillotine shutter, which fits to the front of the lens. And that's, again, it's a vintage technique, but it's really easy to create this gravity shutter which is basically like a piece of, in our case, it'll be a piece of plastic that you let drop in front of the lens, and it has a slot in it. And the slot width defines your shutter speed because it's going to drop at the same speed every time. So it's really simple to do. And we will, once we've got the backings going out the door, we'll look at working on that shutter design, and either it'll be a accessory we offer as an add-on later on for people who want to do that type of photography, or we might potentially just release 3D print files so that people can kind of make their own if they want to.
That's so cool. Well, I'm very excited. For people listening who now desperately want to go out and back a camera, Dave, where should they go and look that up?
Yeah, so visit the Kickstarter page, which is just kickstarter.com. And if you search for Alfie BOXX, and the box is spelt with 2 X's, it will come up. Or you can visit alfiecameras.com, and there's posts about the Kickstarter that will link to it as well. I just this morning posted some more sample images on our website because one of the potential backers was asking about them. So we've got a few more samples up there. And yeah, just search for Alfie BOXX with 2 X's. You will find it without any problem.
Yes, and also there is a link in the show notes from this episode as well, so you can find it there too if you're on YouTube or on your app or whatever. Well, brilliant. Dave, thanks so much for talking about the camera, and congratulations again. I know it's a little bit premature, but you're backed at this point, so it's now your problem to solve.
Yeah, it's been great. Really nice to talk to you, Ian.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, man. Take it easy.